The rich landowner paid him with a dying donkey. What happened next changed everything. In a wide, windswept valley locked between harsh mountains and endless dust, a poor young man accepted a payment that felt like a final insult. What looked like the end of his life quietly became the beginning of his miracle. A long time ago, in that dry valley where the wind scraped the earth bare and summers burned the ground into stone, lived a young man named Elias. He was in his mid-20s, thin from years of hunger, with eyes that carried a calm sadness and hands hardened by endless labor. Fever had taken his parents when he was still a child, leaving him with a broken shack and a small, stubborn patch of land that refused to grow anything but weeds and rocks. The roof leaked when it rained, and the walls whispered with wind at night. Elias spoke little. He learned early that the words of the poor often vanished before they reached anyone's heart. His stored grain was gone, his soil was barren, and hunger followed him like a shadow that never rested. Desperation finally pushed him toward the far edge of the valley, where green pastures stretched like a different world. Everyone knew those lands belonged to the richest landowner in the region, a man named Calder. Calder had risen from poverty himself, yet the memory filled him with bitterness. He ruled his estate with a hard voice and a harder heart, despising anyone who reminded him of his past. Word spread that Calder needed extra hands for the season. Elias walked for hours beneath the burning sun, worn boots kicking dust into the air. When he reached the estate, Calder looked him over with a sneer. His voice boomed, heavy with contempt, asking what made a frail young man think he was fit for real work. Elias lowered his gaze and said only that he would do whatever was asked. Calder laughed, sharp and cruel, and sent him to work with a warning that useless effort would earn nothing at all. Elias worked harder than he ever had. He repaired fences until his fingers cracked, hauled water until his shoulders burned, and cleared stones until his back screamed in protest. He worked through heat and exhaustion, holding on to one hope, a wage large enough to buy flour and seeds. When the week finally ended, Elias stood before Calder, aching but quietly hopeful. Calder smiled without warmth and gestured toward the back pasture, saying the payment was waiting there. What Elias found was not money. It was an old donkey, its ribs visible, its coat dull, its head hanging low, as if life itself was slipping away. The workers laughed openly. They mocked him, calling it a bag of bones, joking that maybe it could become soup. Shame burned through Elias, familiar and bitter. Yet when he looked into the donkey's tired eyes, he did not see a joke. He saw himself. Without speaking, he took the rope and led the animal away, the sound of laughter following him until the valley swallowed it whole. Elias spent his last coins not on himself, but on oats for the donkey. He carried water from the river and gathered the softest grass he could find. He sat beside the animal at night, speaking quietly, telling stories he had never shared with another soul. He named the donkey Solace. Days became weeks, and slowly something shifted. Solace began to stand taller. Its eyes brightened. Its coat regained a faint shine. Life returned, step by fragile step. Together, Elias and Solace turned toward the barren land everyone had abandoned. Elias built a simple plow from old wood and tied it to the donkey. The soil resisted them fiercely. Stones tore at the plow, and the sun punished them without mercy. When Elias weakened, Solace kept moving. When Solace faltered, Elias whispered encouragement and pushed forward. They worked from dawn until dusk, clearing stones and stacking them into a low wall to guard against wind and wandering animals. Elias discovered a hidden spring in the hills and dug a narrow channel to guide water down to his land. People watched from a distance, first with curiosity, then with disbelief. The rich landowners laughed over fine meals, calling his effort foolish, betting on how soon he would fail. They saw a poor man daring to dream, and it unsettled them. But Elias did not stop. The soil darkened as he mixed compost and manure into the ground. He planted the few seeds he could afford. Against every expectation, green shoots broke through the earth. The land breathed again. The first harvest was small, but it was enough to eat, enough to sell a little at the market. With time, the harvest grew. Season after season, the land transformed into a living patch of green, surrounded by dust and stone. Solace stood strong beside him, no longer weak, no longer forgotten. Elias stood differently, too. His back was straighter, his eyes were steady. One afternoon, Calder rode past on a fine horse and stopped short. He stared at the fields, the walls, the healthy donkey. Recognition struck him like a blow. Elias met his gaze calmly, without pride or anger. Calder felt something unfamiliar tighten in his chest. Shame, the landowner, who had everything, found himself with nothing to say. He turned away in silence, smaller than he had ever been. Care what others discard, it may carry your future. If this story stirred something in you, pause for a moment. Notice what in your own life feels written off, ignored, or dismissed. For the next few days, give it gentle, consistent care. Small effort, repeated daily, can revive what looks beyond saving. Care what others discard. It may carry your future. If this touched you, like the story, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe for more reflections like this.